Welcome to Censored, and this reading is from Censored number 118, and it is called Without Natural Affection by William J. Eisenman, PhD. And before I begin reading, I'd like to read a few quotes. Prove all things, hold fast that which is good. 1 Thessalonians 5:21. And he that oppresses the poor to increase his riches, and he that gives to the rich shall surely come to want. Proverbs 22, verse 16. And he that makes haste to be rich shall not be innocent. Proverbs 28, verse 20. And now to the article Without Natural Affection. In the last days perilous times shall come. For men shall be lovers of their own selves, covetous, boasters, proud, blasphemous, disobedient to parents, unthankful, unholy, without natural affection, truce breakers, false accusers, incontinent, fierce, despisers of those that are good, traitors, heady, high-minded, lovers of pleasures more than lovers of God, having the form of godliness, but denying the power thereof. From such turn away. But evil men and seducers shall become worse and worse, deceiving and being deceived. 2 Timothy chapter 3, verses 1 through 13. Did we see any of the above played out on Wall Street? Did we heed any warnings? In Matthew 24, Jesus warns his disciples as to other things that will take place in the end times. You shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. Nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. And there shall be famines and pestilence and earthquakes in different places. Then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted, and shall kill you. And you shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. And many false prophets shall rise and shall deceive many. For then shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, no, nor ever shall be. And except those days be shortened, there should no flesh be saved. But for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened. For there shall arise false Christs and false prophets, and shall show great signs and wonders, inasmuch that, if it were possible, they shall deceive the very elect. That day and hour knows no man, no, not the angels of heaven, but my Father only. Watch therefore, for you know not what hour your Lord comes. These are not happy times here portrayed when Jesus comes back. World war, humans suffering and without morals and religiously deceived, focused merely on the material. In 2008, all the big player banks on Wall Street came tumbling down. They were insolvent, bankrupt. They had no reserves. Treasury Secretary Hank Paulson in the G.W. Bush administration forced banks to accept de facto partial ownership by the government. In 1 week, the stock market fell by 18% and prices rose, while real estate plunged, and the world was on the verge of depression. All the policies, changes of laws, and deregulation were craftily put in place before the 2008 financial meltdown. In the last 30 years, men and women of deception and lacking a moral compass were placed in positions of power as enablers to the near destruction of the United States economy. They were men and women of faith in our fallible and flawed market system. Their ideology prevented them from understanding that late in economic expansions, that is bubbles, dubious investments and reckless financing strategies are central drivers for recession. Since 1985, recessions were caused by the instability of investment prompted by financial speculation. Too much risk and leverage are taken on. Recessions usually result in falling share prices, falling investment, falling consumer spending, and all these slow or stall economic growth. The present recession began in 2007 in the G.W. Bush administration, and the discovery of the financial meltdown was in December 2008. Risky bankers believed they could do anything, and if the worst happened, the taxpayer would bail them out. We found out the hard way that there is no place for free market ideologues in a banking crisis. Free market economies are always subject to boom and bust cycles. A little known fact concerning our economy is that full employment is not a goal of our Congress, the President, or the Federal Reserve. If inflation rises above target, the central bank raises rates, believing high unemployment will lower inflation. For decades, workers have been getting screwed. It is now becoming clear to a large part of America that corporations and big business and their political lackeys have too much control over our lives, our very survival in many instances. We have come to a place where a job can determine whether you live or die. Many times, your success is out of your hands. These problems are now becoming clear to people who want to work, but the jobs are gone overseas. Manufacturing and the making of things is hardly done anymore in America. Many people have finally woken up to the reality that they are and have been nothing but wage slaves. One thing that must be understood about our capitalistic system is that workers are never paid what they are worth. The worker must always produce more for the boss than the boss pays the worker. This is in contrast to what the Bible declares, that a worker must get a fair wage for a fair day's work. Under God's economics, there exists no such thing as job insecurity. Every man shall have his own land and vine. Micah 4, verse 4. Under our capitalistic system as practiced today, job insecurity and the need for a job have become matters of life and death, matters of survival. These problems are not self-correcting. We have produced an economic and political system where a job has become our reason for being. This has placed too much power in the hands of corporations, business, and their political lackeys. Once upon a time, God put Adam in the Garden of Eden to dress it and keep it. God offered no wages to Adam for his work. Anything that Adam and then Eve needed would be provided by God, their Father. Work in the garden had no price tag attached to it. God works without pay. God rules in heaven, in the spiritual realm, and God sustains his creation, the universe. Neither God's work or Adam's work can be viewed as drudgery, bad, or accomplished in a manner of life or death. In the garden, God caused to grow every tree that was good for food. Adam and Eve would never be hungry like 17 million children in America. They would never be poor like 46 million poor in America. There should exist no poor in America. The fact that there are poor in America is a glaring truth that our economic system is wrong, obscene, devoid of humanity, morals, and natural affection. Only when Adam and Eve disobeyed and they were thrown out into the world on their own resources did work become drudgery and a matter of survival in the devil's world. God loves his work, as we should all. We should not be faced with the possibility that we go to work one morning and not come home at night. We should not be wage slaves or any other kind of slave. Globalization is not a natural system. It is a political strategy. It was brought about to satisfy the elites of society. These people hold a one-world order fantasy. Globalization is a dream world where corporations rule, and there is one currency, and no borders, no nation-states, no state sovereignty. It is a world of primacy of markets over politics. It's a hoax. The expansion of global trade has only brought about exploitation of labor and national resources around the world. We are being brainwashed that workers are tied to place and kin. We are slowly coming to the realization that the free market as practiced today is simply incompatible with democracy. During the 1980s, President Ronald Reagan allowed cuts to aid to families with dependent children, AFDC. Even at that time, the program never kept up with inflation. In 1996, under President Bill Clinton, AFDC was done away with. Cash assistance was turned over to the states. Federal grants. People receiving this aid would have to work, and eligibility time was now limited. What is clear here is that the theory that welfare hurts the poor is a Republican and a Democrat ideology. They both believe that aid acts as a disincentive. How come we never hear about too much unearned income for the rich acting as a disincentive? All we hear is about how hard they work and that they earned everything they have. What happens when we cut programs for the poor? We increase the number of people looking for work, and this lowers the terms on which they will accept employment, and it depresses wages. Workers who fear losing their jobs empower the employer, and none of this is natural. These problems have not been addressed adequately because the poor are dispersed and unions today are being crushed. If cutting the nation's budget is needed, then the first place to look for savings is the budget of the Pentagon. In 2003, the United States spent $417.4 billion on the military. At that time, our nearest rival, Japan, spent $46.9 billion. A fair question to ask in this instance is, who are we as a country afraid of? What has become apparent concerning our twin 10-year wars on terror is that our military is not geared to deal with box cutters and using our own weapons against us. It took 4 years to win World War II. Yet Afghanistan and Iraq go on and on. Even Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld in the G.W. Bush administration found that the Pentagon could not account for $2.7 trillion. Today, that figure is much worse. And today, when all totaled, we are throwing at the Pentagon each year $1.4 trillion to supposedly keep us safe. The Pentagon is a black hole for money spent on private contractors, obsolete and inadequate weapons systems. There's no good reason that $800 billion cannot be lopped off the Pentagon's budget. This would not affect national security at all. The United States, which proclaims peace around the world, is responsible for 57% of the world's arms trade. A Christian country would not do that. From 2000 to 2007, median household income fell by 0.6%, while the poverty rate increased by 12.5%. The minimum wage today is $7.25 an hour, which works out to about $15,000 a year. Not enough to rent a $1,200 a 3 1/2 room apartment and have enough left over for food. Unions in this country fought and died to enact laws against child labor, for an 18-hour workday, safe working conditions, equal pay for women, to defend workers against age discrimination, and for human rights. Today, Republican governors in many states are trying to crush unions and fire or lay off nearly all public servants. At the same time that this country has a revenue problem, the wealthy are complaining that it is unfair to tax them. They call it class warfare. Well, what the hell is it called when we don't tax the wealthy, but we tax those on unemployment insurance? What bizarro world logic? Our present-day tax system is anything but fair. Median household income in 2000 was $47,599. But by 2005, it had dropped to $46,326. While the economy, during the G.W. Bush administration, 2007 to 2009, lost 7.2 million jobs. It cannot be stressed too often that under G.W. Bush, no net jobs were produced. The United States labor force expands by 1 million each year. And at the present time, there are not enough jobs in our economy to put to work all those who want to work. The right-wing rant that those that are unemployed are lazy and do not want to work has now, by events, been proven to be a cruel lie. It is time people wake up and begin fearing big business and not their government. And I said their government. The love of money for its own sake is a sickness. It has become clear to many that market capitalism is the antithesis of Christian doctrine. In 1 Timothy, it is spelled out clearly that the love of money is the root of all evil. Market capitalism has done an excellent job of converting evil and immorality into virtues. In our system, capitalists must make profits, and landlords need to get rich, while through all this, the worker is doomed to life at the margin. Workers are never paid their worth, and CEOs are paid too much. This is an unnatural system, a human artifact, a consciously constructed social system which serves the upper class. Oh yes, we do have class in America, my friends. In this system, moral absolutes do not exist. There can be no moral choice without free will. And that is why the God of the Bible allows Satan to continue influencing humans. It's a weeding out process. Jobs were lost in all the merger deals in the 1980s and 1990s. As corruption and criminality became, through laws changes, decriminalized, Wall Street preferred making fees for themselves rather than for their clients. The Reagan administration laid the foundation for a new global economic order in which nationhood would gradually become meaningless. In the Reagan administration, policies were enacted that helped wipe out the high-paying jobs for the working class that were the real backbone of this country. Reaganites believed the poor to be freeloaders. During the Reagan administration, greed was accepted as a public virtue. Reaganites worshiped the invisible hand. Business could do no wrong. Laws under President Bill Clinton were repealed, such as Glass-Steagall, or were enacted to allow Wall Street to do what the hell it wanted. Regulation became a curse word. The economic meltdown of December 2008 that resulted from all this legalized criminality has been the single largest transfer of wealth from the poor to the rich in at least a century. And this is why Occupy Wall Street exists. New York Times. Since 2000, over 3 million manufacturing jobs were lost, and they were not lost on President Obama's watch. The IMF, World Bank, and the U.S. Treasury have set the world on a path of deindustrialization that has created a transnational underclass. This globalization scheme is merely an international shakedown. Its targets are ordinary people across the globe. The United States has the most unequal distribution of wealth in the developed world. Wages are now the lowest share of United States GDP. Corporate profits, in contrast, are way up there. In 2008, there were 28 million people in America on food stamps. It should always be kept in mind that every import costs jobs at home, and that this rise in inequality has political roots. There was no social safety net before President Franklin D. Roosevelt. Today, again, wealthy elites seek to dominate our political and economic life. In the 1920s, $10,000 bought as much as $120,000 would today. Under God's economics, standards would not change. There would be no speculation, leverage, reckless banking, or usury. Franklin D. Roosevelt's New Deal created a middle class. In the last 50 years, the wealthy have seen their taxes as a share of their income decrease by 2/3. In that same period, the taxes paid by middle-class Americans have not decreased. You, my friend, have been pulling the wagon loaded down with the lazy rich, not the lazy poor, as portrayed by the rich and their enablers. You have been duped. The top 400 taxpayers have witnessed their share of income taxes fall from 51.2% in 1955 to 16.6% in 2007. To make up this shortfall in revenue, taxes have been raised for ordinary working people. Tax cuts for the rich merely decrease revenue. They increase the power of the economic royalists. Only 18% of Americans make $20 an hour. This is not something we should be proud of. It should be a wake-up moment. The United States, among the industrialized world, is last in life expectancy and first in infant mortality. How is this possible? Something is drastically wrong. In America, as we have seen, the poor sacrifice for the rich. Since the 1980s, it has become official governmental and business policy to ensure that the rich receive the benefits of government and business. Up by the bootstraps figures in here not at all. The elites have captured the government and are milking it for their own benefit. And they have duped you into believing it is the fault of the poor. Our government has become the servant of the rich. All of this has undermined our society and made a mockery of democracy. We now, in the form of subsidies and tax breaks for the rich, take from the many to give to the few. In 2004, we even gave tax money to 450 faith-based churches and charities. Earmarks! A blatant slap in the face to the First Amendment to the United States Constitution. In obscene contrast, try to dole out tax money to the secular poor and you're called a socialist or a communist. In all of this, the devil appears as an angel of light, but a being without natural affection. The end.
Hi, this is William Morrow. Are you one of those people who join a health club, and after they have your big, overpriced annual membership, you notice that you're on your own with little or no results even after all the promises? Then the website Personal Trainer is for you. Thank you very much, William H. Morrow III.
So you lost another argument with a conservative, right-wing Republican. He talked over you. He screamed and yelled. He brought out the Bible. He thumped it. He quoted scripture to you. You were lost because you came at him with facts. Nothing but facts. And you expected that would make you look good. That would make you win the argument, but it didn't. You know why you lost the argument? You know why you're going to lose your next argument? Because you don't read Censored. Censored, the 30-year-old newsletter that shows you how to defeat a conservative. Read Censored, and you'll have all the ammunition you need. Every time you get into an argument with a right-wing conservative, so-called Christian. Censored, that's all you need. Read it, and defeat a conservative.
Greetings, listeners. Let me speak to you for a moment about the foundation of our entire organization, Newsletters Censored. It was founded by our mentor, the Reverend Dr. William J. Eisenman, in 1977. It discusses the 5 taboos of American life: politics, religion, health, human sexuality, and child rearing. You won't find anything like this in the mainstream media and the press. It reveals the kind of truth that most people are afraid to hear. Can you handle it? We are living in the end times, so in order to defeat a conservative and save America, you need Newsletters Censored. Go to www.newslettercensored.com, click on the printable order form page, and with your gift to support this work, get your free annual subscription. This is James P. Madonna of Megalife 21, the hardest hitting internet talk radio station on the planet.